Thanks for staying with us. You're still tuned to The Fix with myself, Karima Brown, and my sparring partner, Peter Bruce. Let's take a look now at the weekend newspapers. And joining us to discuss this is Media Monitoring Africa's William Bird. William, thank you so much for joining us. An interesting story on one of the tabloids, in fact, focusing on our public broadcaster, SABC's sex pest shock. Now, we know that there's, of course, a commission of inquiry into sex for jobs, but there's also a commission of inquiry into editorial independence. Where are we with both of these processes? And I mean, does this really shock you?
Well, no, I mean, I guess the thing that's shocking about that is the timing, because we were talking about this story when the report came out in October, November last year. So quite why are they deciding to lead with it when it's been out in the public domain since then? I'm not quite sure. You know, so where we are with that, as far as I'm aware, is that they would be taking and implementing certain of the recommendations, except much of the SABC can't because they don't have a core board, thanks government and Parliament particularly. But with the editorial report, I understand that there has been a draft that was submitted to the SABC and that they are busy finalising that, and that's as much as I know. So we should anticipate that that would come out before hopefully the end of this month, certainly, so that any recommendations in there can then be potentially included in the way that the SABC would deal with the way it covers the impending elections.
Just talking about the SABC board, William, I remember President Ramaphosa saying that he wanted them because his fabulous new communications minister had pretty much blown it out of the water. Before going on to censor the SABC at a function the other day, that he had asked the Parliamentary Portfolio Committee to get a new board together quickly, and they've done no such thing. I mean, is it not the same committee that did all that really good investigation itself into the SABC a year ago or so? I mean,
that was an ad hoc committee.
They had a moment of glory. Oh, was it?
Yes.
With Mr. Vincent Smith
at
the time.
Oh, yeah, no, who's now sadly discredited, yeah.
Yes, but so where we are with that is you're right. So either these people in Parliament don't understand a simple instruction from the President and can see the importance of it, because it's the President, ironically, who has put us in this position, because he accepted with immediate effect the resignations of the various board members, and there was no clear reason why he needed to do that, which meant that it's because of his actions that the board is incorrect, right? You then have a portfolio committee who clearly are not following and doing what they said they would do last year. You've got the opposition parties there saying, when are we going to make this thing happen? And now, if you look at the story in today's papers, it seems clear that they are still hoping to send the SABC off into the elections with an incorrect board, which there's another excellent piece in City Press today that says that may fundamentally place in question the free and fairness of our elections. I mean, that's a massive issue.
I actually want to come to that. I mean, the fact that there isn't a board that corrects. The fact that the minister less than 2 weeks ago put her hand physically in front of a camera, blocking the camera person from taking pictures of ANC members who are unhappy with their leaders, Paul Mashatile in this instance in Mount Frere. And the fact that Sanif met with the minister, posed for pictures with the minister, all is now well. The minister is also taking a very active role in, for example, the decision around the retrenchments. Now, whether you support retrenchments or not, the minister is not supposed to get involved in operational work at the SABC. We're going to have an institution that is absolutely critical for a free and fair election that is malfunctioning once again.
Well, by the way, not just because of the ANC. I mean, all of the opposition parties initially backed the plan that they were presented by the board for staff cuts.
Yes.
And then all of them turned on the board when they realized that this would mean staff cuts during the election. So they all wanted to come out and to, you know, sort of lick the boots of the broadcaster. All started to pretend, no, we're absolutely against it. So I don't think there's any reason to feel particularly sorry for the DA or the EFF or whatever it might be.
No, I think that the way the Portfolio Committee currently is behaving is reprehensible in the extreme. I mean, the thing is these are deliberately engineered crises, and this looks like a very deliberate game of brinkmanship. You haven't given the SABC the guarantee, even though we've known from day one just about that it's in dire financial straits, and then you deliberately place the board so that it's not so that it cannot call-rate. Why are you doing this when you don't need to be doing that? So it becomes an inescapable conclusion that this is a direct plan to take the SABC back and turn it into a state broadcast.
Before we go to some of the other stories, I mean, there is a set of institutions that are critical for a fair and free election. One of it is the regulator, ICASA. We've seen that the head of ICASA, Peter, has been sentenced to 20 years in jail for fraud. Now, I interviewed the head of the subcommittee a few months ago on my radio show, and I said, why was this man even a candidate when this case was going on? And he seemed highly upset that I could ask him a question like that because the man hadn't been proven guilty. And he's now going to serve 20 years in prison for fraud and corruption. And of course, we know that the only way that the SABC could be captured was to capture ICASA, because ICASA was meant to be the watchdog of the SABC. So this is a much larger problem than just the public broadcaster. This goes to even the regulatory bodies that is responsible for making sure that 9 out of the 14 million people that watch television and who gets their news from the SABC is essentially left in the hands of the politicians and whatever they say or do.
Yep, it's a strategy of chaos, you know, and we've seen it in other elements of state capture, where you then also put the rest of our media, including this broadcast, in a place of dramatic policy uncertainty. No broadcaster in South Africa has any idea what's going on, and because the chair of ICASA still is in his position, despite that being found guilty, you know, it means that at some point any of those big operators or any of the broadcasters could challenge any of the policies that they've been pushing through, because it was put through by a convicted criminal. So, I mean, even that, it introduces again this further destabilization of the media sector. They don't know how they're going to get licenses, they don't know when they can, all sorts of these issues. So, and that, you then compound that with this, and you then allow for a situation where you had then your operators like Claudi Motsoneng to come in and wreak absolute havoc.
Peter, you wanted to talk about Eskom?
Well, yeah, look, I mean, both City Press and the Sunday Times have written Eskom stories today. Reporter's got its own spin on the story, saying that whites are deliberately being targeted. I'm not sure they quite hold up. I think the Sunday Times story is the better of all of them today. Just talking about the plans to actually protect power plants from potential sabotage should this escalate into a real fight with the unions as they try to implement the plan to split the company up into different divisions. I thought the Sunday Times was very strong today. They've got, and I have to read it again, the sort of war between the Sunday Times and Iqbal Survey has really thrown up some fascinating stories.
William, what do you make of the AO story and just how it's been covered in the media? I mean, Iqbal Survey has lashed out and said that this is an orchestrated campaign by his competitors, but the information today in the Sunday Times is pretty extensive.
I mean, that's what he's been saying all along, and I guess the thing that makes it really hard for ordinary readers is that if you've got a media that you subscribe to and that you've been trusting for the last several decades, and you're then reading what Iqbal Survey says, and then you're reading what happens in the Sunday Times, you look and you go, well, I don't know which one to believe, actually. Even though the evidence that seems to be presented in the Sunday Times ones and the others are pretty damn clear, especially when you then bring in some of the Scorpion articles in Daily Maverick and the way that they've been covering some of these issues. But it means that your ordinary members of the public are thinking, well, could it be this or isn't it this? And this is the beauty of a misinformation campaign.
Yes.
You go out and you make a big song and dance about things so that you deliberately place people in a position where they're not sure of the truth or what could be the truth. And so that's why, again, the importance of critical reporting of journalists now is so fundamentally vital to our democracy.
Absolutely. William Bird, thank you so very much. That's where you, of course, get to hear all these stories that's going on. And now that you've had your fix, we'll be back next time, the same time on Sunday at 9 o'clock.